Nityanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagnachadrisham Tattvamasya Dilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimlamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunaraitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Welcome to the Hindu Manisha talk show. We're talking about why I became a Hindu, part 2. Hindus talking about Hindumisia. Today we have Sri Nitya Gyanatmananda talking about why he became why he became a Hindu, part 2. So last time he spoke to us about his journey into becoming a Hindu, how he started from a non-Hindu background, and he became a computer science engineer, got a job in GE Software. After a few days, he realized he has to find a meaning of life, and he went on to university again, spent 6 years studying in various departments. He specialized in education, and he worked with students and teachers from 5 different countries in 40 different schools. And his seeking led him to read Bhagavad Gita, written by Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, and then his journey eventually led him to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. And along the process, he had a lot of intense spiritual experiences. And today, as you can see him, he has embraced Hinduism, or Hinduism has embraced him. Did I summarize you correctly, Sri Gyanatmananda? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's good. I actually, I was a computer engineering technologist. I didn't get to engineering. I didn't go for to become an engineer, but yes, in a technologist field, yeah.
What is the one thing, that in the part 1 that you think, everyone should know about? Like, what is the one thing that you shared in your part 1?
Yeah, it's I mean, yeah, the thing that one of the main things is that there are solutions for everyone, and there is benefit for everyone. Doesn't matter who you are or what you believe, or if you don't believe, or if you have faith or don't. It doesn't matter. There's benefit available for everyone. There's solutions. There are solutions, and doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or what you're facing, or how big your problems seem. You can do it, and I do kind of feel like that has been a blessing for me. I do have an extremely long way to go, I would say, and there's a lot that I'm sort of excited about learning, in ways I'm excited to grow. But yeah, no matter what background, like I said, growing up, I literally only knew Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad. That's all I knew about religion, spirituality. I didn't know masters, gurus, meditation, Kundalini, third eye, Hinduism. I didn't know masters existed. To put it frankly, I didn't know that masters existed. I didn't know that real enlightened gurus existed. I didn't even know that. And I sure didn't know that there was thousands of them through Hindu history. And so, yeah, I would say, if one thing, doesn't matter who you are or where you are, there's solutions, and it's just up to you how far you want to go with yourself. Nothing's going to be forced on you. The definition of life is that it's like your Swaraja Shakti, like manifesting your self-determining consciousness is a power, Shakti. And that's what the power of your life is, you manifesting your pure self powerfully. And so that's up to you to say yes to it and to make it happen. So no matter who you are, what you're facing, you can do it. And all the solutions have been laid out already. So yeah.
Excellent. So Hinduism is diverse. It has a diverse group of traditions which can cater to every being with irrespective of his background or faith or religious customs. It can give solutions for every kind of person because it has been around for a long time, and it encourages diversity within its own spiritual traditions. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so before we let's look into your early childhood, or before you started your spiritual journey. What was your understanding of Hinduism, and what was your opinion of Hinduism, or what was opinion of Hinduism around you? Like what is the kind of environment that you grew up in, and what kind of understanding of Hinduism was given to you?
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I was born in I had the mother and father. I had two sisters. One sister was about 3 years older. One was 3 years younger, and we were living in a small town, 2,000 people in central Alberta, outside of Edmonton. And our parents were very young. Actually, they were basically 18 when they had their first child, and they just they basically got married. They hadn't really planned to get married. They sort of got married along with. It wasn't that they were planning to necessarily have a family, start a family. They ended up sort of getting married along in that process, and yeah, so I think the father was probably working in construction at that point, and but there was not. I mean, there was not really much religion, spirituality, pretty much not really much of anything in that sense. Hinduism was. I mean, actually, it's if you look on the map of sort of where even sort of southern India is, if you went to the furthest place from that place on planet Earth, that's pretty much that's almost exactly where I grew up. And yeah, it was in that sense, early life, that's what Hinduism was. It was totally unknown. There was no there was no yoga, no chanting. I didn't know what puja was until just a number of years ago. So that whole aspect, Ayurveda, that was nothing like that was there. So yeah, I didn't know anything about it. That was about as far away from our life as you can get.
And what about your school? Like when you started your education, was Hinduism introduced to you in school? Did you discuss anything about Hinduism in school?
I think probably maybe after the age of like 14 or something, it probably was mentioned after like Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. It probably was mentioned like, oh yeah, there's 1 billion people over in that, poor country with all those poor people, similar to Africa, a bunch of poor, destitute people who aren't able to take care of themselves. They follow something called Hinduism, and there's a lot of different dancing and singing and chanting, and it's an extremely sort of fragmented, sort of multiple different ways of doing things, and it's sort of not a lot of the sort of, I guess, like even sort of clerical ways of thinking about Christianity, and there's a clean church and it's sort of barren from a lot of things. I mean, that was sort of the kind of churches that we went to, although it was rare. Yeah, the Hindu sort of thing was more like, I don't want to necessarily use the term tribal, but it was kind of shown like that, like primitive, village, small village type, sort of older, custom, kind of pagan type. Not really clear about it, not that many rules, not civilized, just kind of a broken bunch of sort of random tribal practices kind of thing, probably.
Okay. And you mentioned you never went to the church. Was it like you stopped going to church, or was it your parents who stopped going to church?
Yeah, our mother, like our parents, they separated and got divorced when I was about 5. We that sort of was happening, 5 years old, and yeah, so it was, yeah, when we were before that, I don't remember much before that, but when we were living in that small town, 2,000 people, where our extended family was, probably we must have been going more frequently to church. It was mostly our grandparents, the mother's parents, and she herself didn't keep it up that much, and I think kind of by extension we didn't. It was mostly we just went for Christmas, or if there was some big event. I mean, we weren't really, there was no congregation we were actually involved in. It was more like our grandmother, if she came to visit, or her mother, our great grandmother, if they came to visit and wanted to go, like Easter, we would go. It was, they just pick one of the churches in our town and we'd go. So yeah, it was extremely fragmented. It was like 2 times a year probably. And well, I mean, one of my friends happened to, he for some time went to a Sunday school, so I used to just go and hang out with him sometimes. So actually, we did some study for some time. That was probably the most involvement I ever had with the church.
Okay. And how long did you like hang out in the Sunday school?
I would say maybe a couple months. We 6 or 7 times. They used to, I don't remember too much. They used to give us, I don't know, we had to read things or write things or transcribe things or practice. I think we practiced a few prayers. That was the most fun thing. There was a few songs. And so as kids, we used to just play around joking, learning how to sing the songs. But yeah, we just went there, and I think we played soccer or dodgeball or something. And it was, but it was not, yeah, I definitely, like, although I grew up in this, essentially Christianized sourced society, and technically our grandparents, they did go to church like every week. We definitely didn't. We definitely were like the generation where we stopped doing that. It was mostly the grandparents, great grandparents. So I heard a bit about it. The grandparents, they talked about it. I knew some basic concepts. I knew the like sterility of the church, how this man just would speak like, I don't even know. It didn't make sense a lot to me. And but the mother was sort of like, she wasn't into it. So really, and so I'm sure that I definitely picked up along that route.
So your mother began to not go to the church, and then you imbibed her tradition of not going.
Yeah, and like, the whole perspective, like the reasoning for it, right? Because they would have discussions if they're going to go or not go, and I'd be like, I don't like it, I don't want to go, and she'd be like, yeah, I know, I don't like it either. And so yeah, the reasoning and the alternative logic and stuff, and like, why don't you want to go? Why is it useful? What do we do there? Why do we do that? So yeah, it's kind of the the sort of like anti-logic as to the logic as to why it's not important or why we don't need to go was, and then it was just you know, it was kind of like going to someone's wedding. You just go to their wedding. It was kind of like we just went once or twice a year. Just sort of like a small festival type thing.
What was the reason, the logic that was explained, or that you guys came up with for not going to the church? I'm assuming this would have been a very heavily Christianized town, right, where going to church was a normal every Sunday practice.
Mm. Yeah, it was, I mean, a small town, so there was probably a good chunk. There's probably, I mean, I don't remember that much. I was young, but there was probably maybe 60% of people who probably would go. There's probably more than one church. We moved to a town a little ways away when I was 5. There was 16,000 people, and we didn't go to church. I think it was just the mother didn't see the usefulness in it, really. She didn't connect with it. I'm sure that there was a part like she felt it was kind of pushed on people unnecessarily, and that her probably grandmother was kind of a little bit preachy and pushing, but she's noticed that it was like it was a good and useful thing, but it was a little bit too condemning for her. Like she was definitely a bit more of a sort of rebellious free spirit. So it was probably that, like, it didn't speak to her. And then I guess also being young parents and being divorced, I think there's a lot of social stigma, especially in more evangelical small towns. I think that was a pressure also. It was difficult to find acceptance. I think she was struggling with her own life, and it was trying to justify that to people in church communities. And people will just say things, right? Just say whatever. And I think for a young person like that, it was probably tough to find a way to stand up and continue. I think that was probably a big factor, and the fact that we moved away from that town to a different place and sort of started new things over there.
So, because of the divorce, you found it very tough to deal with the church and the attitude of the church towards divorce, and you ended up moving to a different town, a bigger town, to escape the environment created by the church in that town.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say exactly why. I think for some point of speculation, I would say young parents, they got married and they weren't sort of mature to really know how to maintain that, and things happened, it fell apart. And I would say it was probably a tough situation at that point. I guess my mother must have been about 26 or something. And so she ended up being a young divorced single mother with 3 kids at the age of 26. And I don't know, I might just say like that probably wasn't the vision she had for her life. But I think it's tough to say what exactly happened. Probably she was faced with kind of staying in that small town. 2,000 people is a pretty small town, and I think she was probably forced with staying in there, being around, kind of everyone knows everyone's business. And but it's so I think it would have been, I think that's probably how it was playing out, is it was a challenge to stay there and be there and try to find an identity and try to recover from that. I think it's a traumatic experience to go through. And then how can I possibly continue? I'm a single mother, divorced with 3 kids by myself. Like, that's a tough situation. And so yeah, so that's what we went to this other bigger small city, and then she was studying full time and working full time and taking care of us by herself. And yeah, that's how that happened.
Okay, so now moving on to your, maybe you in your school, the only introduction to Hinduism was, hey, a bunch of billion crazy people out there, and who are, very tribal in nature, who are, who cannot take care of themselves, and that's the opinion with which you entered your post high school.
Yeah, post high school. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, it was just there was. See, the thing is, media, if not Western media, but media. I mean, a lot of origin of media comes in this Western sense, but yeah, but the way that India and Africa is presented, because I've never been to Africa, and I've never been to India. So what do I know about that? The only thing I know is what I've seen and heard. And that's all I know about that whole, Africa is what, the size of Europe and like USA combined or something. It's enormous. And something like 1 billion people there. But yeah, so the way that India and Africa is presented, a lot of what if I look, like a lot of what I know and knew, like the cities that we grew up in, it was mostly just white Protestant, like we call it WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And a lot of this entire state or province of like 3 million people is pretty much that. There's, in that sense, there's I mean, but anyway, that was a small city where we grew up, is not almost no diversity at all in that sense. Some Aboriginal population, but yeah, so the only thing we knew, and my friends and stuff, I mean, we didn't know anything about Africa and India. The only thing you ever saw was like things on National Geographic, or you saw like the United Way and those people, UNICEF, like that was a lot, because you see like they're doing fundraising, they're building wells, they're building schools, they're you can sponsor a child. Like a lot of it what come from church organizations like United Way or whoever those save a child or whatever those things are. A lot of what we knew was we saw those fundraising events on whatever you call them, fundraising drives on TV, or we saw the commercials like donate for this, or you see National Geographic, but it's completely just, it's basically, right, it's like the way it's presented is people who don't really wear very much clothes, and they live in dusty situations. They live in small straw huts or like really, or city slums. For some reason, they're not intelligent enough to have their own water supply. They eat like, small animals, whatever they can catch. And yeah, that is how pretty much how Indian Africa is presented from here, is whole bunch of really poor, destitute people.
So a lot of your imaging comes from what the church has presented, right? So in their fundraising programs, like Save the Child, or they're all like the Christian organizations, right, which do a lot of proselytization in India, and that's and they need to raise money, and that is how they raise the money in the Western world. Okay, so good. So moving on to the post high school. So what was the your exposure to Hinduism in post high school? Like, what did you begin to learn in your college environment or in your 6 years of study that you did after your job? Like, how did your understanding of Hinduism evolve after that?
Yeah. I always kind of knew something about Buddhism. I always connected nice with that. I like that idea that we should be at peace with everything, including animals, trees, and like the earth. I like that. And my best friend growing up was, I think he was a Cree of the Aboriginal population. So I connected with them quite nicely. But Hinduism was, like I said, my only thing I knew was Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad. That's all I knew, and I didn't go to church, and we kind of rejected it because I think that's how our family sort of treated it a bit. So I was like, I'm not going to do that thing. It's kind of like indoctrinating, and so I was studying the computer sciences. I didn't know much about it. I took a Buddhism class in university where we learned a mantra, and that was nice. So I knew that the monks were like something, but to be honest, it didn't exist. It really didn't exist. I don't know, the word Hindu, whenever I heard Hindu, Hindu was like esoteric, strange, like superstitious, kind of like voodoo. Hindu to me was this, that sort of similar, like voodoo is like you build a voodoo doll out of straw, you poke it with pins, and it's like ghostism or whatever, witchcraft. And Hindu was like kind of like that, mostly like that. And like I honestly didn't know anything about, like, there was no exposure. I can say like less than Judaism was pretty minimal too, but you know, there was very little exposure. Mostly there was some awareness of Buddhism, a little bit that Islam was there, and then I knew sort of Judaism existed somehow. Hinduism was extremely small in my awareness, but I would say that was the main thing, is that in Africa they had tribal things that a lot of them were voodoo, eating animals, like almost eating them alive, eating them raw, living in straw huts, no shoes, can't afford clothes. They wear these t-shirts with the holes in them, like t-shirts that we would have thrown away, like 10 years ago, and people are wearing that. They're not intelligent enough to even have water. Like, who are these people? And so my understanding of the Hindu was very similar. The only thing we got about Africa and India is a whole bunch of dark-skinned, like that's all they showed you, right? They showed you starving kids with huge bellies living in straw huts with no water. And it's like, come on, Canadians, give them water. And we're like, yeah, they should have water. Like that's pretty much, that has to be 60, 70, 80% of period of what you saw. Surely it was more. And the actual thing to say that there are some intelligent people there, like that story certainly was, I mean, that must have been 1% if that story was ever told. So yeah, I didn't know, it didn't exist pretty much to me. I don't know. I just I took this Buddhist class in university because my purpose in university was to basically, what I recognized before that was that you can be however you want and you can interpret the world however you want. So I just wanted to know, okay, how am I supposed to interpret it? What am I supposed to do? And that's why I went to university, was to find out why we're here, what we're supposed to do. And so that's why I took those classes. And I realized after university that they didn't know why we're here or how to live. And so I kind of got, it kind of brought up some depressed, like, when you realize that, yeah, everything you thought is fake, is a lie. Like the whole society is a lie. Like they don't know what they're doing. They're telling you get a job, get money, get married, have kids. Why? Why? Get, a huge mortgage and debt. Why? Why? Well, so you can, there's no reason, just because. And then you can have barbecues and you can go on vacations. And so that was what I realized, when I got that job after my first college, after high school. I was like, oh, I worked for 20 years to get here. And everyone's saying this is what you want: a big corporate job, big money, young person, sports club. That's what you want, like that. And I was just like, no, it's not what I want. So I was like, everyone is telling me to do this. It took me 20 years to get here. I'm like, this is not right. I don't want this. Now I better question what other things they're telling me, because this is not right. And then they're naturally telling, oh, great, you got a job. When are you going to get a house? I'm like, I don't want $400,000 debt. What do you mean? What kind of question is that? And then they're like, when are you going to get married? I was like, well, your guys' marriages didn't work out very good. Like there's, it's like there's more divorces than marriages in my family, because, two divorced people get married, right? So they've already been divorced twice and one marriage. So it's like there's more. So then they're asking me, when are you going to get married? I'm like, why are you, how has that worked out for you? You're on your third marriage. Like, and so I was like, more and more, I just got like, maybe I shouldn't do what everyone's telling me to do. But anyway, yeah, it was after university that I realized they don't have an answer. And so I started looking, and the most thing I knew was about Buddhism. So I started with Dalai Lama and Dhammapada. And then I was studying Christianity and Islam and Judaism. They didn't speak to me. Buddhism spoke to me most. So I studied through that for a while. And then I don't know how it happened. Nothing. I don't know. Somehow I was interested in the meditation thing, and I was looking what to study next after some videos I had seen and Dhammapada and some Dalai Lama videos. I was looking for what's next, and I wanted more. And that's all I can really say is somehow I think I had probably offhandedly heard about ISKCON, but I didn't, but I don't. They're like, okay, people who sing, they sing or something. But for me, I think somehow Gita, that word Gita, I don't know, somehow it happened inside of me, and I searched online and saw this word Bhagavad Gita that was a book that had to do with spirituality, and I thought, okay, that's probably what Gita is. So that's how I got started. That's actually how it happened.
Okay, so then you went on your spiritual journey, and you had no real, except for reading Gita. Did you have any other broader understanding of Hinduism as you began to read Gita and continue your spiritual practice, or was it just the Gita that kept you busy?
Yeah, no, there was still no understanding about Hinduism. There was just that there's this incredible book, and there's someone, Srila Prabhupada, talking about it, and it seems like he's probably a fairly deeply spiritual person who's leading an organization, and he's talking about Krishna, in a way that he himself is tiny compared to Krishna. And I was like, okay, so and it was extremely profound, the book, and it was very all-encompassing. And I just thought, and then the one big thing was like Srila Prabhupada kept saying the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna, and Krishna revealed this 5,000 years ago, and it comes from part of this ageless tradition. And I was like, oh, this civilization exists, that is this great. Like I was very clear that whatever Krishna is that lived a long time ago, that Krishna knows way more about me than I'll ever know. And I was like, wow, there's something big here. And so I wanted to learn more about it.
So you said you had a Cree uh, best friend growing up. Did you happen to learn anything from their history or their version of history, and did you compare notes like then or later about your understanding of history versus his understanding of history?
Mm. Yeah, I was extremely blessed actually in my life, in many ways. And we had two reservation communities near to our community. So we used to visit sometimes. And there was one of them that was like the biggest community in the state, was the biggest native community in the Aboriginal community in our state, because they had all mostly pushed to reservations, like through treaties and revocation of treaties and whatnot, which was in a terrible state, like pushed on with alcoholism and destruction. They were put in residential schools, just completely decimated their life. So we used to travel there, and our family and friends lived nearby, so we knew about it. And they had a big celebration there every year, so there was that. And yeah, I did. There's a sort of practicing tradition called a sweat hut, and that the Aboriginal traditions do. You build out of willow sticks. You build a small hut, cover it with branches and whatnot, and you steam it up. You put hot rocks in a hole inside, and you steam it. It's a steam. It's a spiritual. It's part of the spiritual awakening practices. So I did that a few times with various members of the tradition. I did go to one of the kids I worked with, one of the youth I worked with in one of the group homes. He was, I don't remember exactly which tradition he was with, but as part of his routine, he went to a meeting at one of the Aboriginal native groups in his city. And so I accompanied him, and I went to one of the biggest celebrations. It's called powwow, big celebration. I went to one of the biggest annual, possibly the biggest annual celebration in the state. I went there, and that was incredible. People from probably 30 different groups joining. It was maybe 6 or 8 hours. Yeah, I had a lot of exposure. And in university, I met with one of the elders. They use the term elder, from, I think he was from Arizona. So there's a big tradition there, even a big spiritual tradition. And he was telling his story about the persecution and what they're trying to do now, and the challenges with government and who they are. And that was an extremely profound meeting we had together. I spoke with him personally afterwards. So I knew that there was a spiritual life. I wouldn't call it spiritual life at that time, but I knew there was a way of living that wasn't disconnected from the land. Like you know, we live in these plastic houses in North America. People don't know, I worked with a lot of people from Africa and a lot of people from India. And whenever they came here, the categorical thing that they always told me is, there's no life here. Like, we came for money. There's a lot of money, but there's no community. There's no life. You guys don't live together. You don't eat together. You don't really do things together. There's no community together. And I was just like, yeah, you guys don't know that? Like, I remember saying that. I was like, yeah, that's why we're trying to learn from you. Like, people from those areas are coming here thinking it's great, and oh, great. And then they're like, you guys don't have any life. There's no community, no family. Families don't live together. Marriages don't stay together. Kids don't cooperate with their parents. And I was like, yeah, you guys don't you don't know that? That's the story. That's our story. We don't live together. We don't do stuff together. That's our story. And I always thought, we want what you guys have. We want community where people live together, where they care about each other, where they do stuff together, where it's not just 60 hours of work a week and get money and, try to take vacations and spend time by yourself. So yeah, it was, but I did, yeah, I was aware of the persecution of the native traditions and how they worshipped trees and worshipped the land and worshipped animals. Like each animal has a different meaning. The crow, the bear, and their building of totem poles and the representation, their spiritual practices, they're using the smudging ceremonies and the dancing and the respect to animals. And like it was very similar with Hinduism, because you don't desecrate rivers, you don't desecrate lakes, they're living. You request for their blessings. You don't desecrate forests or hills, mountains. This sacred, like you are sacred, your life is sacred. And they have a thing called a vision quest that everyone, I mean, in certain traditions, I'm generalizing a bit, but where when you get, it's a coming of age ceremonies where you go to realize who you are and what your purpose is. And I remember at a certain point in my quest, I was planning to do that because I didn't find the proper path anywhere. And I was like, you know what, I think I should probably try to find a way to get into doing a vision quest. And actually, in a roundabout way, I ended up going through the sweat hut ceremony. So yeah, I knew that there was something else there, and that those people were very, whenever I met the elders, they're very calm, they're very grounded, very deep, very simple, they've laughed a lot, very silly. It's one thing you see with, like, these people say, like, the people who live in the extreme north are the happiest people on earth. But they live the simplest and sometimes the toughest life. But they were like that. They're very jokey, very real, and very able to deal with the fact that youth was facing like a lot of issues with alcoholism and whatnot. Very real. Those elders were very real. They're willing to spend time with you. They're not like really stress uppity trying to get to the next thing. They're like, we're here and we're going to be here together. And so yeah, I did have quite a bit of exposure for that. Yeah.
So then you went on your eventually your spiritual journey, with starting with Bhagavad Gita, and through different you read about a lot of different masters, and then you finally came to India in 2009 November, that time frame.
Yes, it was, yeah, something like the second week of November. Yeah.
Okay. So until 2009 November, you had no more, except for the persecution of Cree. You're not. Did you have any other understanding of religious persecution, especially of native traditions, whether it is in native traditions of Hinduism or Cree Nation or any of that? Like, did you get more exposure to any of these persecutions that was happening until 2009?
I knew like some of the issues that Native people in North America and Canada were facing. Like there's a group nearby that owned some land, and there was development of like they were trying to fight for their rights to the gas rights and the water rights of the land. There was a ski resort nearby, and there was some encroachment issues. So I knew that there was real issues. And I mean, the two communities nearby to us just completely decimated a lot by alcoholism and corruption. So I knew that was there. In terms of the persecution and whatnot, 2009, I mean, I went through Concordia University. The Muslim Student Association there is very active. And I remember, I think it was Benjamin Netanyahu came to visit and was going to speak there. And there was a big protest and they stopped the speech. So I knew there was some kind of conflict between the Islam and the Judaism that I didn't quite understand, or at least it manifested that way in that moment. So I knew there were some things going on that way. Yeah, I knew the Native North American population was that there had been residential schools, their hair had been cut, they weren't allowed to speak their language, they were forced to practice Christianity. I knew there was a lot of corruptions that way. The church didn't really make sense to me. I knew something about colonialism. I mean, even with slavery, with the slavery history involving Africa. Yeah, and those kind of things, I think.
And were you aware of colonialism that happened in India? Like, did you study about it, or did you come across in passing?
I would say the only sort of thing, not really. The only sort of issue, the only sort of vision I had is like they'll show like a British hunter who wears that like a Tilly hat from like the 1900s, and he has his shotgun or whatever, and they go on these safaris, whatever, and so I get that was pretty much the colonial idea. The only thing I had is that yeah, your British people had gone there and kind of lived there for a while, and um, probably were occupiers for a while, and probably took some money and indulged in whatever they did, and then eventually they got kicked out. But it was extremely cursory. Yeah.
Was it shown as like something which was a good thing or a bad thing or a neutral thing?
Well, that's the thing, right? Africa and India was always projected as millions and millions of dark-skinned, thin, poor people who can't take care of themselves.
So you always need someone to take care of them, and colonial folks took care of them.
It's weird, it's like probably the projection was like, right now we're trying to take care of them. If you give us some money, we'll build them some wells, and we'll give them some rice and some inoculations, and that'll probably be good for them. That was kind of like, they didn't tell us, like the town that I grew up in, there's a huge St. Francis Xavier church here. I didn't know, it's new actually, and it's huge. It's the biggest one on the hill, and it's just huge. And I'm just like, you guys don't know. Like, you guys say Hitler is bad. Like, you say Hitler's bad. You don't know that. You don't know this church you're going to. That's 300 years. You don't know, like, he laid the groundwork for something much worse than that Hitler ever did, and they're no idea.
Okay. Okay. This is an understanding now, right? But not before 2009.
Yeah, before. Yeah, before I was very naive at that point, for sure. And yeah, no, I didn't. I think the only thing I probably kind of knew was India is very poor. They're very backwards. A lot of strange traditions that no one should understand, and that's probably why they have problems. And probably the biggest, I mean, like I said, like I'd never been there. None of us had ever been there, so we don't know. The only thing you know is basically what you see on TV, because you're not reading about India and Africa. You're not researching India and Africa. The only thing you know is like UNICEF. Like, they used to send us around, like UNICEF Children's Fund. The big thing for Halloween, which everyone loved Halloween, is you would get a UNICEF box and put it around your neck, and people would drop pennies in it. That's what we did every single, like, the infiltration is incredible. But so yeah, so this, you get a UNICEF box and you collect donations. And this is for the poor kids in Africa and India. The poor, dark-skinned, thin people that you see on TV with flies on their face all the time and broken, torn, dirty clothes, that's the people. So I think probably the only thing I knew was like, if we give money and work with this United Way and stuff, although those people are in a really bad situation, they don't seem to know what they're doing. Like, there's, no one was telling you, hey, we destroyed their life. They weren't telling you that, right? They're saying like, look at these terrible people, like, or terrible situation people. There's lots of them. We're in a better situation. We're more powerful. We're better. If you can give some of your money, we'll at least give them water. We'll teach them how to dig a hole, so they can get water, because they don't seem to know that. Like, I would say probably, although I didn't think about it much, that was probably the version it is given is, yeah, they're not telling you that we destroyed their lives. They're like, hey, if you give us some money, we'll $5 a day, we can send them to school. That was the thing, you could sponsor a child. So that was my main thing, is just probably knowing they're in an extremely terrible situation. There's not much they can do about it. If we give them a little bit of money to, I mean, I don't know, like, I guess if we give some money, if we send some white people over there with a little bit of money, we can, try to, like, I don't know, like buy some clothes for them and stuff. Like, it was really, like, anyway, that was sort of the understanding.
Okay. So you came in India in 2009, November, and then you stayed for 3 months in India, and then you went back to Canada. So you came in November, so I'm assuming you would have stayed November, December, and January you would have gone back to Canada.
Yeah, I went back. I stayed a little bit longer. I went back like February 12th or something.
Okay. And then what happened after that? Did anything happen that forced you to look at things in a different way?
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to start crying for some reason. But yeah.
Yeah, can you walk us through that? What happened?
I don't know. It's difficult to talk about it. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to speak about it for some reason. I mean, I talk about it a lot, but you don't always realize. I think you don't always realize the betrayal that you experience. Like, I think that's one thing. I was always. I think I was. I mean, I think I definitely was naive in many ways in my life. I was very sort of blindly trusting, and but anyway, yeah. So all I really know is I had gone to India for that 3 months, my first time, just to see what it would be like, and I had the I had the solution, this whole solution. See, when I first saw Swamiji, I quickly got the sense, oh, he can make anything happen for me. Like, yeah, like I had studied for 12 years probably by that point. So when I first saw Swamiji, I was like, oh, he's different. I was like, I think this is what people talk about, like Buddha and all that, when they're talking about things and spirituality and enlightenment and powerfulness. I'm like, oh, I think this is what they're talking about. And so I sort of early on, I quickly recognized Swamiji's real. He's not just talking. He's the only, like, he might be the only person I've ever seen that's real. Like, whatever Srila Prabhupada was saying with Krishna, I think maybe this is it. And so I sort of quickly recognized, like, Swamiji could make anything happen that I wanted. If I said yes, he could make anything happen in my life. And I was like, that's good. That's hopeful for me. And then in Inner Awakening, I experienced that. I was like, wow, this is what I was like. I was like, it's done. What it's done. And so that was extremely profound. So that was my first thing. I was just a naive, like, I'm going somewhere that no one goes and no one knows about. And it's a big shift for me, but it's the best thing I've seen so far. And I'm going to go and just see what happens. And it was great. And I was like, that's awesome. And then I was feeling very fulfilled. And I came back. I was spending some time at my parents' house at that time. And I was there for about 2 weeks until like March 2nd, 3rd of 2010. And I was feeling great. I was like, wow, that was incredible in India. And then, yeah, I don't know. We got these messages on like the YouTube, because it wasn't so active. There wasn't live at Nityananda TV, and there wasn't live streams all the time. It was just sort of like much less. And we got this I don't know what. I think what happened was the usual daily stream didn't happen, and we didn't really know what was going on. And we slowly found out something, that Swamiji was in danger, and we didn't know where he was. And it just came out like that I didn't know if I was going to see him again.
That was in March 2010. And so what happened after March 2010?
What do you mean?
Like you, so in March 2010, you came to some kind of a conclusion that you may or may not see Swamiji as in Swami Nityananda. And how long did it take for you to realize what exactly was happening?
I still don't know exactly what was happening. If I can remember, I have such my. I can just, I mean, to answer straight, I still don't know.
But it awakened you to the persecution that happens on Hindus. Did that happen in March 2010? No. How
No.
long did? So what exactly you got exposed to in March 2010?
I would say that what came up was a bunch of slanderous stories about Swamiji. And I was faced with myself sitting by myself in Canada. How am I going to respond? Like, what does this mean to me? And so I was challenged with a whole bunch of bad stories about Swamiji, which I was still kind of new to the whole thing. Basically, I mean, it was only a year and a half even since I even saw Swamiji was on YouTube. So yeah, I was faced with a whole bunch of slanderous stories, like whole bunch, all different angles. I mean, not all of it was in English. I just knew they kept showing some kind of video, and I didn't really understand what was going on. I was like, I frankly don't see what the problem is. Like, aside from whatever allegations you're making, I don't even, like, the maximum I can understand is that people were saying there's a spiritual teacher and people are mad that because in Canada or Christianity, priests and pastors and stuff get married and have kids. So I was like, is there some difference that gurus can't be married and have kids? So I think that was I was just like, oh, people are really mad that maybe a guru, you know, because it was my understanding that not every spiritual person, because I'd studied many, like even Srila Prabhupada had kids, and he was, I think, an accountant, but like Nisargadatta Maharaj and whatnot. But it was my understanding that you didn't have to be celibate and you didn't have to be single. And I think, I know Sadhguru, I think, was married or something. So that was the thing to me, is like, I didn't get what the big deal was. Like I couldn't translate everything in different languages, so I didn't know everything. But all I could understand is that they were flashing pictures of what appeared to be Swamiji with females and not really much of anything happening. And so that's all and I was just like, I was like, I've done much, me and everyone I know has done much worse things than whatever's being told. And so that was kind of my understanding of it. So that's it. I was faced with, do I, like, it just didn't make sense to me. I was like, I don't get it. Like, if you want to tell stories about my friends and my family, about, how they live, there's much worse things, much worse things, and we're fine with it. So I just didn't, it was like a totally different standard. And we didn't hold pastors and priests to that standard, and teachers and coaches, sports coaches. So I didn't have any idea what was going on. But what I was faced with, and then Swamiji was arrested, and I was just like, I didn't understand that. I didn't know how that was possible. I didn't know how that could possibly happen. That's the frank truth. Because I thought, even if there's allegations of, I don't even know what, none of it really made sense. And yeah, I just had to decide, what am I going to do? And I just decided, hey, all I know is, like, I didn't know that much about media as I know now, and what their motivations and techniques are, but of the Holocaust and all that. But I just said, look, I've been working a long time. Swamiji is the best thing that ever happened to me. Nothing bad I ever saw. I never saw anything bad, nothing wrong. He's only been good. He only did good. And that's what I saw. And if I get a chance to go back, darn rights, I'm going back. And if I go back and Swamiji is as evil as they say and bad as they say, and he says, get lost, you stupid idiot, then I'll get lost. But it took, probably a month or two. And I was like, how do I deal with this stuff? But what I came to was like, no, I'm going back. I'm like, so as far as I know, like, I understand there's a lot of allegations, but as far as I know, Swamiji is the best thing that's ever happened. That tradition is the best thing that's ever happened. My experience there was the best thing that ever happened. He's only ever done good for me. Never asked, even till this day, never asked the only person I ever known in my whole life who never asked anything for me. Not how you're doing, like he asked how you're doing, but I mean, never, ever asked anything for me. Could you do this? Like, that's all I can say. I never knew anyone like that. Never had a relationship like that with anyone. Never asked you for anything, only gave to you. And so I was like, that's all I know. I'm going to go back. And if he is as evil as everyone's saying, and he says, get lost, get out of here, then I'll get lost, because I'll do that. But I'm going to go back and see. So that was kind of what happened.
So when did you go back?
Yeah, so there was a living enlightenment process that started, I think, in August, September of 2010. I missed going. I tried to go back. I didn't quite connect all the dots to be able to go back. I missed it. So I didn't go back until the very end of March of 2011.
Okay, so after 2010, when you left India, until 2011, you didn't go back to India.
Yeah.
And during this time, did you have any broader understanding of what was exactly happening, or the history of persecution against Hindus, or the hatred against Hindus? Like, did any of that expand in your mind?
No, honestly, it's kind of sad. It's, maybe even embarrassing to say, but no, I didn't think about it too much, I guess. It wasn't until 2018, so the second half of 2018, that I started to get a good grasp of some things, actually.
Okay. What happened in 2018 that forced you to get a good grasp?
Yeah, I was there in, I think it was July. I don't remember the dates exactly. Maybe it was June 6th and 7th, but 2012. That was when I think it was Samya TV, and there was this Ajit reporter. But I was in Adi Kailash and Adinam at that time. And so some of these attacks happened. And I'm trying to remember exactly how it happened, but I was there, and we were there living we were just innocent people. That's what people don't get is, I left my whole life and all the money that I could have had and everything, vacations, boats, houses, relationships, travel, like everything. Because I recognized the world is in difficulty and needs help. And I wanted to dedicate my life to living a peaceful life. Like, that was my understanding. I'll go to the forest. There's a great guru there, a monastery there, a community there. I'll dedicate my life to peaceful living. I didn't know that, you're supposed to be an international, like spiritual warrior. I thought like me going to practice yoga in the forest is my purpose. So I was very naive. We were very naive. We were just living, we were just trying to not be destructive humans, like, and for that we get murdered. So that was a surprise. But I was there, and I'm trying to remember exactly how it happened, but I think what happened was something had happened, and along the way, um, something strange happened. One of those OBV vans, this outside broadcast vehicle, basically it's a van that big news media stations use that has like a satellite on top, and it's their mobile broadcast unit, showed up outside. This was my introduction into like the physical, because there's a lot of corruption in North America, obviously, but the corruption in India is like in your face, on the street, beating you with sticks. Whereas in North America, it's more behind closed doors and manipulative. But in India, it's like they come to your door with gangs and sticks and beat you up and go away. Like that was my introduction to like, wow, this is like, I've seen corruption in police state, but in India, they come with, they grab sticks off the ground. 25 people come with sticks and beat you over the head and go away. That's how manipulation works in India. Whereas in North America, it's kind of more like corporate behind closed doors type thing. So yeah, this OBV van, this news van, I think it was, I don't know if it was TV9 or Samya TV, shows up outside the gate at like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And like, that's weird. Because I was working with Nityana TV, we were doing daily news of just mostly IDM activities. That was really weird. Then about an hour later, this angry mob of men shows up with like, I don't know, surely they had some rocks and sticks, shouting at the gate, trying to break the gate down. And then police are there watching them. Like, I'm not saying anything, but that doesn't happen where I'm from. The police don't stand by while an angry mob of men with sticks and rocks breaks down a gate of anything, anywhere. And a group of armed police officers with their police vehicles stand by and watch it. In the middle of them, not at a distance, standing around talking to them, talking to these 3 guys, where those 4 guys are breaking the gate. That doesn't happen where I'm from. So I'm sitting there in the middle of the forest in India, trying to live a peaceful life. And this OBV van shows up out of nowhere. Nothing else is around. Then like an hour or 2 later, an angry mob of vagrant men with yellow and red scarves and white t-shirts start shouting and throwing rocks and pulling glass off the top of the wall and throwing it and beating our, like, I was just like, and the police are standing there talking with some of them, where I honestly, I didn't have any idea where, I didn't have any idea, honestly, I didn't have any idea what was going on. So that was day 1, I think that was day 1. So then I think what happened was, I'm trying to remember the sequence of events, is the next day, I think Swamiji, the IDNM had called a press conference to talk about, I think, what had happened. I might be getting the order of things mixed up a bit. So a press conference happened in the IDNM like the next day, if I remember this correctly. And so press was involved, and they came, and there was a bunch of cameras set up, and we started talking. Then this guy stands up in the middle of the, like, after this weird attack had already happened, and I didn't know what was happening. It was just kind of chaos. But so the next day we had a press conference to try to talk about it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Wow. Like, we're going to talk about, things. And so then this Ajit guy stands up in the middle of the press conference and starts accusing Swamiji of stuff. And he has this envelope in his hand, and he's trying to, I guess, I don't know, serve papers or something. And then, I mean, I didn't know, I didn't know where I was, to be honest. I was one of the cameramen sort of for the broadcast. And so I was trying to sort of run the computers and stuff. And I honestly had no idea what was going on. And then this crazy man, big muscular man, like I played ice hockey my whole life, but this guy was big, starts attacking physically the female sannyasis. Like, I don't know what to say, right? I grew up with, two sisters and a mother, and we had a lot of women in our family. You don't hit women, and especially men don't hit women. I mean, no one hits women, and especially nuns and monks. Like, we gave our life, we come from, being engineers, teachers, and all that, to live a peaceful life, to model the peaceful life. And anyway, so in the middle of this press conference, this guy stands up and starts yelling, accusing stuff at Swamiji. And I was frankly extremely ignorant of the whole thing. And despite the persecution, I was very ignorant of it, and start accusing stuff. And I'm like, who are you? You obviously don't know anything. I'm an intelligent guy. So, and then this psychotic man with this blue and gray striped shirt starts throwing chairs. Like, I'm like, I left the so-called civilized world in North America to come to this peaceful place. This guy comes in, starts throwing chairs. Who throws chairs? In my whole life, I don't think all the ridiculous things we've done with hockey teams and late night parties, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone throw a chair. Who comes to a monastery and throws chairs at female monks? Like, I was just like, I don't know what to say. I had no idea what was going on. He starts throwing chairs, grabbing like those poles that hold up banisters and trying to hit people with them. It was terrible. There was another man with him too. He punched one of the female sannyasis that I know, who was one of the yoga teachers at the time, punched her in the neck. Like, for anyone to punch anyone. Then for it to be this guy was huge. Like, I can handle myself as needed in certain ways, but to handle that guy, he was huge. If you see the video, he's a huge guy. He's wearing these tight jeans and this tight shirt, and he's a huge guy. So for him to punch anyone is extremely dangerous. To punch a woman we're getting into levels of not possible. To punch a female monk, and then in a monastery, and then during a press conference, it was just like, but anyway, so that's what happened. He started throwing punches. He punched her in the neck, and he's throwing punches. Not like, I'm just like, where did that come from? He was like a drunk man at 1 a.m. and a bar fight. This is not, you're in the wrong place, man. Where did you come from? He later confessed that he was paid to do this, but I didn't, and so that's it. They were pushing women. They came in, started punching women. And in that 2-day process, it wasn't the only thing. There's video of outside the gate of them, several men attacking another one of the female sannyasis. And so I was there during that time, and they locked down the Adinam. It was one of the most, probably the first experience I had of, if I can look back, although I didn't cognize it at the time, of persecution and religious persecution. Because what happened was, apparently, and I have to check the facts, but I think what they did at that point is they imposed this, I don't know if it's called Section 144 or something, but they put a restriction on gatherings. I think they said that for the Adinam, because these invaders came and made problems, they put restrictions on the Adinam. It's like, that's the playbook. So the next day, when I went to do puja, because every day you start with bath and puja. That is like, you never miss that. So I went to do puja, and one of the sannyasis said, no, we're not doing puja today. And I was like, what do you mean? We've had days where we don't do yoga because there's busy programs, and it's like, hey, no yoga today, quick, serve the people. And we've had days where there's no satsang. Okay, no satsang today, we have to do this work. But never, ever, ever, ever don't do puja. Sometimes they'll say, okay, do quickly puja. Sometimes Swamiji will say, quick, run and take bath, do puja, and come back. Like, but never, ever, 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 we don't do puja. And so one of the sannyasis the next morning said to me, we're not doing puja today. And I was like, what do you mean? And I don't remember, but he just kind of said, like, there's a lot of difficulties going on. We're not allowed to gather for puja. So just do a short, quick puja by yourself. That was weird. I remember I sat in a dark room and we were not turning on lights and stuff. It was, there's other aspects to that process, but I didn't have any idea really of what was going on. I have a much better idea now, but I never expected that I would choose to dedicate my life, give up whatever I supposedly could have had over here. Money, fame, wealth, whatever, and dedicate my life to peacefulness. And then just the weirdest thing on earth, because you're the peaceful people, they try to kill you. It was just really, it was really, really weird. And the extent to which it was like the police were doing it. It was the weirdest. It was like there was a show called Twilight Zone where everything is upside. That was the thing, is an OBV van showed up outside, and then an hour later, 30 crazy men, like crazy people don't just happen, late at the bar, maybe it happened, but that doesn't just happen. And then the police are standing talking to them. Yeah, it was. And then a man is inside our temple punching female sannyas. It was like a comic book. It was like reading a comic book.
So you said there is an OBP van, and then an hour later, a bunch of 30 crazy people came in, and then they were talking to the police. How many policemen were there?
It wasn't very many. It was like, I think they were spread out. But there was probably a few different cycles that came through. Not many, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that.
Okay. And they were talking to these crazy people, and at any point of time, were they aggressive? Either of them were aggressive with each other? Or was there any fear that was visible?
That's what it was. Very strange. It was extremely strange. Like I said, that does not happen in Canada. Police do not watch a riot in progress. Like, and in that sense, there's no talking. Like, you don't talk with the rioters, you stop them. So there was an extremely weird thing going on, because some of the police and some of the men were talking strongly, intermittently to each other. But in the meantime, those 2, 3 rowdies over there are throwing stones and trying to break the gate and climbing the gate and throwing sticks. And then intermittently, the police would just kind of stand. It was. It was
well orchestrated, right? Between the media, the police, and the professional, they're professional mob, right?
Yeah, like that's the thing. I didn't know this at the time. I know now, but I mean, I don't know everything. I know a pretty good chunk of it now. But at the time I didn't know that it was like that. I didn't know, but it was glaring, because this van showed up. It was like, why is a professional TV van here? And we were like, we don't know. And then an hour or some later, all these ridiculous rowdies come out, start breaking the thing, and the police are talking to them. It was like,
the media came with all their high-end equipment, set themselves up, and the goons came in, and media was there to record the whole thing happening. And this was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like, now that I've studied international persecution more, now I get how it works. But at that time, I didn't understand that media fabricates the news. Like, media creates the news. Of course, it goes into the persecution more. But I didn't. Yeah, it was. And like I said, it wasn't until towards the second half of 2018 that I started to get to know more about this. And actually, so the incidents I was telling about was 2012. I don't know if I mixed those dates up. I might have, but that was 2012 when these incidents were happening.
Yeah, so that's right, right. So first the mob attack happens, and then there is a press conference that gets called. And once the press conference gets called, again a bunch of hooligans come in the press conference, like paid hooligans, and then Section 144 is imposed on an ashram, which is a private space. It's not a public space. Section 144 is like, you limit the crowd in a public space. You don't limit the crowd in a private space. It is not applied in a private space. I think the reason it was getting applied was they were planning to hold a silent protest in their private space. And that's the reason they, did that. Moving forward, so when was the next, your understanding of persecution grew, understanding of violence against peaceful Hindus grew?
Well, yeah, it was right at that time, because that was like right when I left. My 6 months in India was up, so I left like shortly after that. And so at that time, it was like discussion of, is it safe to be there? And to be asking if it's safe to be in a monastery in rural India, to me was a shock to be asking that question. I never, ever, ever thought about even feeling nearly as safe anywhere else ever than I did feel there. Swamiji just like, you're his kids, literally. So after that, yeah, immediately after that, it was like people talking about, are they gonna go? Can they go? Is it safe? Like it was, yeah, it was the next, the next following weeks just going on.
Okay. And then you left India, and then did you acquaint yourself anymore with any of the persecution that happens against Hindus, or any hatred? Did your understanding of Hindu hatred or Hindu Minisia grow after that? Hindumisia, sorry.
I don't know if I was maybe just one of the most ignorant people who ever lived. I must have been, I guess, but like I kept hearing pieces of, it's hard to say, like Swamiji sheltered all of us. He didn't want us to be burdened by everything, I can say. That was my experience. I literally was able to continue spiritual life and practice despite this stuff going on. And I didn't know the extent and all that. None of us did, because our response even shows that we were just like in shock. But no, I didn't know. And Swamiji, yeah, all I can say is Swamiji took the brunt always on him. And yeah, so yeah, that's the way it was. I think some people were involved with certain things, but I think a lot of us didn't know. And I know Swamiji wanted to create a safe place where, people can learn nonviolence, and so he, yeah, so that was my experience. Is I just continued trying to live what I thought was spiritual life. And I don't know what to say. Swamiji never forced that stuff on us. He never burdened us with it. Not that it's a burden, but that's just not how it was, like even when he was attacked at the hospital, he came for a satsang in a wheelchair and just said, I just came to bless all you guys. Like, so, he never, I mean, I don't know. I feel obviously kind of like guilty in that I didn't know. And, but that's the truth. I just sort of ignorantly kept going on. And I mean, had the benefit of what Swamiji is providing, despite that, by any measure, he should have been dead by that point. By any normal person would have been. I didn't grasp that, I didn't. So yeah, I just kind of it's like, because then the next thing that happened was, I think it was August of that year, we started with the Samyama in Kodaikanal, and we're yeah, that's what I think, this Madurai Adinam coronation was happening. And so I think that's part of the reason why a lot of more of the assassination attempts continued. But I know that I traveled to Madurai Adinam at some point, I believe during that year, and because we were going through the celebrations and repairing the premises and painting and cleaning and stuff. And so there was more stories about, like, it was weird, like the monks that I was with, they go out during the day and they'd get accosted and assaulted and come back. And I just didn't, to be honest, I could say I didn't bother myself with it in a way that I should have. Yeah, I just didn't expect that. I expected that I was supposed to be dedicating my life to basically, like, yoga, praying and chanting and stuff. And I didn't realize that was also, that it needs to involve me being like a world leader and like stand up and speak out against the murderous outrage. And I didn't understand that spiritual life was going to involve that. I thought it was more like a renunciation, like a lot of people think. Taking sannyas is renouncing the world and not having responsibilities. I think that's how I saw things more. Like, you cook food, you serve food, you meditate, you do yoga, and that's pretty much it. I wasn't signing up for, being a world leader and standing up for a lot of people and facing difficulties and, recounting injustice and recognizing international affairs and global affairs and how they relate to people's lives. Like, I didn't know, I wasn't getting into that. I just was like, I want to learn more about yoga,
Can you walk us through what used to happen in Madurai? You mentioned about the monks going out and getting beaten up, and they would come back while you were cleaning up the Madurai, and this was after the coronation of Swami Nityananda as the pontiff of Madurai.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it was like I was in Adi Kailasa when 292nd Guru Mahasannidhanam came and the coronation happened. I didn't really know what it was, to be honest. I don't know what to say. I just didn't. I mean, I think that's, people go to the Adinam for a lot of different reasons. And especially Westerners, we're not ready for that. We're just like, we want to get away from the stressful life and we want to just like live in the sanctuary. But yeah, so I'm guessing it was definitely around that time, if not after. I don't remember all the dates, but that's what I mean. It was the weirdest thing on earth, because we were sitting there trying to be peaceful, contribute to hosting meditation programs by day, and by night people were trying to kill us. It was
And
like,
who are these?
Sorry?
Please go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think around that time there was a press conference in Chennai, because I went to it. There was like 300 news cameras. Like, I was part of the video team, and so I got to go for that process of broadcasting things. And we went to Chennai for a press conference, and there was like 300. I think I counted. There was 300 video news cameras there. I never seen that before. And I didn't have any idea. I didn't have any idea the magnitude of who Swamiji was, or what he was, or what he was doing. I didn't have any idea. I was just like, he's a great teacher and it benefits me, and I need to do more, like learn more about it. But I remember we went to Chennai, we went to some hotel lobby or not lobby, the conference room. There was a line. I remember counting 300 cameras. It sounds like a lot, but that's what I remember. And yeah, so we went there and we talked, and then they were attacking Swamiji. And I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I couldn't digest it. I couldn't I don't know what to say. I didn't ask the questions. I was like, in my life, arguing in philosophical arenas and education seminars and stuff, and so much anger, violence and stuff. I just didn't want to be part of that. I wanted to rid my life of animosity, anger, violence, hatred. That's what I wanted to do. And I was willing to give up everything for that. I was like, money, fame, fortune, all that stuff is, if I'm not happy, satisfied, living, like the native traditions, like what we have is enough to be fulfilled. Protecting the trees, protecting the lakes, the oceans, the mountains, that is a fulfilling life. And I couldn't, I don't know, I would challenge anyone to try to make sense of that. If you, all of a sudden you step into a room, there's 300 cameras, flashing lights and shouting, right? Because shouting, like media people shout, forget about media people, Indian media people, and attacking. So, and I was just, I don't know what to say. It was like I was watching a sitcom, like I was watching a drama on TV, and they had created a drama like, here's a spiritual leader. The story of this movie is this spiritual leader is bad, and here's the media finding out and exposing him to the people that he's bad. That's what was going on. But that was not my experience at all. I was dressed like this, and I was with my monk brother and sisters, the female women who were beaten by these people. And it was I would have liked to have been more responsible. I should have been. I could have been. In my previous life, I was very questioning about many things. I had a wrong understanding of what spiritual life was. That, going beyond the mind means you don't think. There's no thinking. And I don't know what to say. Yeah, it was totally surreal, because we would do yoga and puja in the morning and healing for people, and have meditation programs with tons of blissful people learning Ayurvedic food and stuff. And then intermittently throughout the day, night, days, weeks, there'd be assassination attempts. I don't.
Did you ever get to a point like at that point of time, like were you able to figure out like who was trying to kill you guys, or who was doing what? Like why is it that you guys are getting beaten up? Like, did you have any kind of understanding at that point of time, like while you were getting beaten up?
I would say that I didn't have very much. Part of it was I didn't speak the languages, so I didn't hear the conversation going on, and I couldn't read the media. And we didn't, frankly, talk about it too much. We didn't stop. Swamiji is always, like, that's the thing, right? Swamiji comes in a wheelchair when he can't stand to give himself to people. Like, that's what he does. There's no, world leaders don't do that. Politicians, presidents don't do that. If they're sick, they stay home, So it's like Swamiji want to give to as many people as possible. So that's what we focused on: providing food for programs, bedding, housing, audio-visual support. And no, I had almost absolutely no idea. I think, people who spoke the languages and stuff and could read the media and stuff, they had way more idea. I didn't have, I didn't, no, I guess in a sense, blissfully ignorant, but, and surprisingly too, I didn't have much idea. It was tough, it was tough. Swamiji teaches us to be powerful, and contribute to people. And so that's what I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to fight with people, cause problems. I was, I know it's kind of an excuse, but that's like, we have work to do. It's like, whether you're tired or whatever, we have work to do. There's people in the program. We need to support them. And that was kind of more I wasn't interested, I guess I could say. I wasn't interested to have more problems in my life, you know, and I guess just the fear of not knowing how to handle them. So personally, I would say no, you know, it wasn't until 2018 where I started to get some ideas of actually what was going on.
So that was in the Madurai, right? So after Madurai, what happened? That was in 2009. I think he was coronated in June. I think it was in April, right? So April that he was coronated, or sometime in June, between April to June. And you probably
2012,
would,
yeah.
yeah. And then you were in Madurai while you guys were getting beaten up. And then what happened after that? What is the next time that you had to face this kind of situation? Like,
With the attack on Hindus.
yes.
I don't, it was weird because I didn't speak the languages. So the other Adinawasis and people around me would speak their language often. So it was kind of like 90% of the verbalizations that I heard during the day, I didn't understand. So I think that was a big part of it. I mean, of course, I didn't have the space of interest to, it was weird because I was even reporting some of the news sometimes and I was like, okay, I'll report that. Okay. But I didn't grasp, you know, the magnitude of the attack, but that's what I mean. It was weird. Stuff would just come up time to time, day to day. This attack happened, that attack. It was really, I don't know, Swamiji sheltered us. That's all I can say. He sheltered us. He tried to provide a safe place for us to live. So that was it. In 2013, I went back to Canada, and then there were some attacks on people that I don't know, it didn't make any sense. And I didn't want any part of that. I didn't want, you know, I quit playing ice hockey because I was trying to see if living ahimsa was possible. That's why I quit, because I couldn't continue playing ice hockey because it was violent. Like, I didn't want any part of that's. If I say it, I think I didn't want any part of controversy. I think that's the space I was in.
And you went back to Canada in 2013. And were you becoming more aware at this point of, you know, the attacks on Hindus that was happening, or the Hindu hatred at least, or the innate hatred against Hindus? Like, did any of those things, like, were you becoming more aware of any of them?
Sadly and somewhat sheepishly, no. And probably surprisingly, yeah, I just I mean, bit by bit, piece by piece, it was like this thing happened. It was just weird. I'm just seeing the other streaming, but it was bit by bit, piece by piece, things would come up, and it was just weird, you know. It was like we couldn't always tell people where we were going. There started to be mentions of like, oh, be careful what you say to that person, you know. So this was this was our sort of maturing process, where we started off as just naive people trying to live spiritual life, and we're learning how to live ahimsa, but how to be powerful, and how to, you know, stand up for yourself in a nonviolent way. Like, there was all those kind of things. Like, you don't tell people stuff, and it's kind of sad in some ways, although it's a growth process where you learn. But it's like, you know, the life is supposed to be free and open and without cunningness, right? That's how we're supposed to live. But in a certain way, you had to learn Don't talk to those people. Don't tell that people that. Don't say that word. Don't share this information. Like there was that kind of thing where you couldn't say certain things. You couldn't broadcast or tell certain things or informations. And it was like, oh, that person got attacked. Oh, and it was just like, yeah. So I didn't understand the bigger picture, but I knew that we had to tread more carefully in some ways. Like I didn't get it in a lot of ways, but I got that was happening. And yeah, attacks were happening in Canada even. I think we had a stall. I wasn't there, but there was like a international food day, I think, or something, or book day or culture day, and we had a table there, and people came and started insulting and attacking and threatening the people there. So, and we did have we had like a Hindu heritage gathering in Toronto, which was quite big actually. And we had a table there, and I was manning the table. And a man came by and started shouting bad things about Swamiji. I was just like, as long as I lived my regular life of, 9 to 5, meat eating, partying on weekends, no one cared what I did. But when I started spreading the message of like peace and powerfulness, now they want to kill me. It was a lot to learn about humanity.
So you said a couple of minutes back that you were not able to talk about the attacks on Hindus openly, right? Especially in your tradition, there were instances which you couldn't talk about openly. You had to like suppress them. Is that correct? Correctly that I've understood that?
Yeah, it was extremely weird because it was new to me. Like, that's one of the things when you're part of an organization, in a sense, you have to kind of learn to represent the organization, like basically. And so you learn how to do that. And I had never really had that experience too much in my life. I sort of did what I wanted to do. And so I would learn by trial and error. Oh, don't say that. Don't talk about, yeah, it was really weird because you go to the best spiritual guru in existence and you're like, hey, I'm trying, I'm far from perfect, but I'm trying to stop doing bad things. That's why I'm here. Like, I'm trying to stop doing bad things. I'm trying to learn good things. And then now you're restricted in that. No, you can't. Don't tell about that thing. Don't tell about this good thing. Don't tell about that good thing. Like, they were attacking. I mean, one of the stories against Swamiji was like Swamiji used to sit on the Simhasan at the seat, and at some point a devotee gifted a print. It's like if you took a stamp, you can get the like this, the tiger cloth, right? So someone had given Swamiji, it's so ridiculous, like someone had given Swamiji a cloth to sit on, and it had a face on it. Like, I've seen bearskin rugs where the bear's head is there, and you can tell the difference between a head of an animal versus a stamp on a fabric. And what Swamiji used to sit on was the face of the tiger would fall down in front of the seat, and it was a stamped picture of a tiger's face. It's clearly not a tiger head. Like, a difference between a procured tiger head and a stamp. And some of the stories was that, oh, look, he's collecting tiger pelts, which is against the law. So there was certain stuff that we couldn't talk about. Like, you can't say, oh, look, he's sitting on a nice tiger skin, like a tiger print, like simple stuff like that. You couldn't, oh, don't mention that. Because in the news, the courts, the police, they're trying to persecute based, like, there was stuff like that. And I didn't get the context and the reasoning for why you can't say that, but I knew that there's some, you can't talk openly anymore.
So the persecution or the attacks on the Hindus like forced you to take religion into a private space, right? So you had to like practice it very secretly, even though you are living in a democratic country. your religion became private, like the way, which is very typical of persecuted groups, right? So you cannot practice a religion openly.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kills your consciousness because you start to question everything you do. And because you don't know. You don't know what you're not supposed to do until you do it. And it sucks because you want to live sort of freely, but you're like, oh, if I'm too happy and I say something wrong, or I shouldn't really say how great puja is or how fun yoga is. It's just, it really messes you up. And I didn't even know what the attacks were or what the reasonings were, or like I didn't know all the details. I just knew that some stuff that seems totally innocent and regular, like even how to make food and even showing how we make food, like just you couldn't, because they attack everything. Like if they get a picture of, Swamiji frowning or something, they make a news story out of it, and it just felt silly. And yeah, I didn't honestly realize it at that point that it was persecuted. And it's weird to come from, it took years for me to understand any of this, and it's weird to come from where I come from. The life I was living is kind of the alpha life, like a white man who's an athlete, educated, in and all, and that is like the society looks to prop me up. Like I was kind of like, the North American society is wanting to push me to the forefront. And so it was weird to go from that to like, wow, I'm a member of a religiously persecuted minority now. It's just, really? Wow.
Yeah. So after Madurai, okay, you were back in Canada in 2013, and then when you're talking about your religion, you were again attacked in one of the places in Canada, and then what happened after that?
So after that, I wanted to take sannyas. I wanted to become a sannyasi. And so I had to settle my debts. And so I actually went back for some time to my hometowns to complete with some family members to get started and to settle my debts, basically. And so yeah, I continued hearing. So I was that was for the first time since 2011 that I wasn't full time in a temple or adinam, and that was for about a year. So yeah, so I continued to hear some of the attacks and stuff, and it just kind of went on, and that's it until I think February of 2015. I went back to Adi Kailash, and we the Kumbh Mela happened at Nashik in 2015, and so I was learning more it was just weird. You're kind of living a covert life. It's weird because you're living a public life because Swamiji is doing public programs, and so that's what was strange. I never expected, that's what, when the 2012 attack happened, when I was there, I went to the forest to basically, retire and do yoga. And I never expected that I'd be thrust into the forefront of like an international media mafia conspiracy. Like all the things I had studied in school about, exploitation of like the NAFTA and GTA and the World Economic Forum and the World Bank and all this stuff you hear about how they exploit countries and all this stuff. I never thought that going to the forest to just, retire and practice yoga, I would have been thrust to the forefront of the nexus of where all these forces are coming to a head. I was just like, it's like a million times bigger than I thought it could have been. And so, yeah, so when we went to like Nashik and we're building the campuses for the people to be, it's like Swamiji is saying, hey, come on, serve the people. And so we're serving, but while we're doing it, we recognize that there's murderous forces everywhere. And you just kind of, for me, it is a spiritual thing. It's like Swamiji's taking care of me, and when I leave the body, he's going to guide me. And if I leave the body today, that's okay, because I already got the solution. So in a weird way, it really is like that. It's like just, there's still some ignorance involved, but yeah, it was a weird thing. It's like, you're going to serve the people and the murderous attacks are going on, but we're not going to stop, serving the people. And so it was actually a luxury that Swamiji afforded to us, despite all the murderous attacks because most people will just have to cower and crumble. Like that's what even the Kanchi Shankaracharya is a good example, and with Ashram Bapu now, and it's like when these forces target you, it's over. There's no second, third chance. It's over. It's done. And it's just unique. Swamiji as who he is, a real incarnation that, literally Kalabhairav has protected him. So it's like, it's just it's unique that, it's unique that we're not all dead and destroyed and don't have a guru and a family.
Okay, so you were in Canada until 2014. Next was 2013. No, 2014, right?
Yeah, 2013 was the year I was in the Toronto temple. 2014 I was in Western Canada, settling my debts and completing with my family. And 2015 went back to India. Nashik was September, and then the following May, June, July around was Ujjain.
These are the Kumbh Melas you're talking about, the Nasik Kumbh Mela in 2015 and Ujjain in 2017?
2016, yeah.
2016.
And if I could remember, December 2015, we went, this was the thing, I couldn't believe it. I studied corruption, I studied, and I internationally, I knew about it, but I didn't know about it from the Hindu perspective. That's for sure, to say the least. And I had no idea the nexus, and I had no idea the targeting. And I was like, why Swamiji? Why? And no idea the magnitude and how it goes back and spans countries. People don't understand. This spans countries, millions of dollars, thousands of people, years, and countries. People have no idea what's going on. And the fact that specifically Swamiji is the head target, you just have no idea. You have no idea. And but yeah, 2015, we did Nityanandoham program in December in Thailand, and the persecution came out there. Those people physically accosted at the resort where we were. What can you say? I don't even know how much I can even talk about this, actually. But all I can say is, yeah, we stayed at a few different places for the to put on the program for about 800 people, international program. It was incredible. That was one of the best experiences of my life. But literally what happened is we were at one of the places we couldn't continue to stay. There was Hindu music forces. There was all kinds of attacks, infiltrated that program in Thailand. And I saw it firsthand. And that was a next level. For me, that was a next level of, I just flabbergasted that we are in Thailand doing an extremely awesome, blissful, fun thing. And there's some international organized mafia trying to kill me? What, I don't know what to say. I'm pushing a camera and serving food. Who am I? But it's because I follow Swamiji. So they want to kill Swamiji. So by extension, I also need to be eliminated. Not that people are targeting me, but That's what it means. Swamiji is my life. He's my guru, my mother and father. So if you're killing him, you're killing me. And so they're trying to destroy my life. By extension, yes, but literally trying to destroy my life.
And this was in 2015, December in Thailand. Okay.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was literally like, it was the most, because it was beautiful. It was in Phuket. It was beautiful. And we stayed at 5-star, 7-star resorts. Like it was, and it was not like, it was incredible. So yeah, it was the thing, right? It was the most incredible experience for the people there, but they didn't know on the street during the night, hired hitmen are there doing all sorts of things, poisoning food, cutting electricity. Like it's the movies that you see, is that they spend money to do that. That's what they like. It's unbelievable. But like, again, our female sannyasis were manhandled in those resorts by the people running the resort because of their connections with these mafias.
This is all in like 5-star, 7-star hotel.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful traditional also resort. Yeah, just spanning many acres and many facilities. Yeah,
So like
just,
these are like really good hotels, right? Not like, street side hotels, like which serve
no.
international clientele and
Yeah, like for example, we had one meditation hall. So outside the hall, permanently there would be 1 or 2 attendants just for us. And I mean, that means permanent. Like the rest of the time they're serving us hand and foot. But permanently, 24 hours a day, there's one person there. Like 24 hours a day, one person is there. Like, and there's really 3. Like there's one in the kitchen, one at the office. But yeah, no, it's no, the Hilton, the resort, and no, they're like our yeah, it's incredible. And our dining table literally was, your feet were in the sand on the beach of the ocean. Like it was, yeah, it was. I keep saying it can never get better, but with Swamiji it always does. But like, I don't know, that was pretty incredible.
Right. And then what happened after 2015? After Thailand?
So yeah, 2016 was Ujjain. So we're still not talking about Kailasa Nation. Like Kailasa Nation, I mean, it didn't come up that much strongly till like even 2018, certainly for me. And so we're not, we didn't have the cognitions. I mean, I think really certainly we didn't. And so yeah, we didn't really understand Kumela or how big Swamiji was or what he was doing. And we didn't understand all the coronations, what they meant. It's like regular Hindus. Regular Hindus don't know the magnitude of Meenakshi, and like they don't know the history, and like we don't know. It's just another religion, take it or leave it. You don't know what we're actually talking about. You don't know who's running the world, the colonization that's going, like you don't know. And so it's like, what was history before that? That's important. Like we just kind of go along with the flow of media and music stars, movie stars and stuff. And so yeah, we didn't know. So we're in Nashik, and it's the hugest thing in 2015, and we're like, okay, we certainly don't grasp the magnitude of who Swamiji is at all. And then we go to Ujjain, and it's much bigger, and it's like, this is really big. And but it's weird because Swamiji's like, we're going to celebrate. It's like Swamiji, like the more they attack, the more he gives. And the more they attack, the bigger he celebrates. It's kind of the opposite of how people will react, but it's the way you have to react. So that was kind of the experience there, is like, Swamiji's like, let's make this bigger. And so we had the Peshwe procession in Ujjain was like 9 hours. So we broadcast it live, and that was one of the biggest experience of my life. And they loved Swamiji. Like we went through these small streets, like it was I mean, that was one of the first times I got a sense for how great what Swamiji is doing is, because we went on a procession, basically everyone who was available, all the different groups, and I don't know how many groups, maybe like 30, 50, 75 different groups or something. And basically it was like a 9-hour procession. And basically each group would have like one float. There'd be a tractor that pulled something, and that's what it was. And some of the bigger groups would have like 2 tractors or 3, or some of the Naga Babas like were there. So those bigger, like they'd have maybe hundreds of, so that was like the big, there's a few of them. But we did the Peshwe, and most people had 1 or 2 or 3 tractors, or some of the big ones had like 5 or 7. And we had, I think, 32 tractors. And not only that, we had like 2,000 people, and a lot of them were international people. And so like our group was kind of like almost bigger than the whole rest of the procession put together. And I'm just remembering if that was Nashik or Ujjain. I think it must have been Ujjain. And yeah, so that to me was like, wow, because that was my first exposure to the Mahamangaleshwars, like the leaders of the Akaras and stuff, and just seeing who they are and how they are and what their groups are like and what they do. And then you see, and Swamiji is extremely authentic and extremely traditional, but flamboyant in the sense we had all these huge umbrellas, small umbrellas. We had a huge amount of them. All that we had, see, the processions we did was, we had like 31 tractors of deities. So like we built a temple in Ujjain with about 200 deities. It was the size of like a football pitch, and there was 200 deities inside, and we had like, I think it was 1,000 or 2,000 people per hour going through there. So it was huge. And so I started to get a sense like, this is huge. And we started to meet some of the other Akaras in the Kumelas, so you could see what they were doing and who they were and what they were doing. And then it was like, then you started to see, oh, you know, it's like there's a few sadhus there. They have a small little place. It's like, oh, and you started to see that. Even the Mahamaleshwars, small little places and few people. And it was like, Swamiji is doing something like 2,000 times bigger than this. And so that was, it was really good learning that, you know, it's not just, you know, like a group where it's like, we're living small Hindu life. It's like Swamiji was doing something much, much, much bigger. And so that was when you got the sense like there was political involvement also, because we like, that was when I first met like Narendra Giriji.
Late Narendra Giriji, like, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, until then I didn't know, like the only sort of the other sort of traditional Hindu spiritual leader that I'd met was like 292nd Guru Mahasannidhanam of Madurai. And it was great. He was, you know, it was a great personality to meet him. So then we met a lot of the other Mahamaleshwars in Nashik and Ujjain, and you kind of see. And Narendra Giriji was really, he was special amongst that group also. And then you kind of see, and Swamiji is on a completely different level. And so it was kind of like, oh. So then when you see like, yeah, the leader of the Akaras as Narendra Giriji coming and saying, we want to send all our kids to Swamiji's Gurukul, and Swamiji is going to lead the world, and he's unique, and he's Avatar Purusha. Like when you see the biggest leaders saying Swamiji is next level, all the leaders of Hinduism gathered and saying Swamiji is next level. That was, it kind of gave a more perspective of what Avatar means, you know, versus like mystic, enlightened master, and Avatar, and like Avatar Purusha. That it started to give more perspective. Oh, it's something beyond even what the world's greatest spiritual leaders can say and do. It's like, it's something much, much bigger. So that's when the sense came. We were having big campuses, celebrations in Kumelas, and all the leaders were coming, like just after, and like Swamiji used to do a darshan every night in Ujjain, and thousands of people just come, like I just think 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, constant stream of people every day Swamiji would do this. And it was amongst that constant stream of Mahamaleshwars, Akaras coming to meet, constant dignitaries. And so you see these big leaders coming into the campus with all their cars and all their people, and you're like, wow, all these people constantly coming and waiting until Swamiji's, done the darshan with, like, it was just like, whoa, there's a lot of huge groups that constantly want to come to see Swamiji. So that was when I got a sense for, like, if the Hindus are at least some of the Akaras and Mahamaleshwars are seeing and speaking the great potential and like future for Swamiji, then I started to get a little more sense. Oh, so all of the Hindu leaders, are recognizing Swamiji is something extremely rare and special. So now it makes a little bit of sense. There's a big amalgamation of Hindu here. So now it makes a little more sense, the political and other interests that are going against that. Because it doesn't make sense to, take an elephant to squish an ant. And so it's like, why this huge attack on Swamiji? But when you see this huge, all the Hindu leaders just literally falling at his feet, these are the Mahamaleshwars saying that they don't have any concept of how big Swamiji is. And I'm like, you don't have a concept? Then I better rethink, because he's quite a bit bigger than I thought then, right? So that's when I started to cognize what Avatar Purusha means, Purna Avatar, what that means, like what actually does it mean? And that is a good indication. When you see the world leaders coming and falling at his feet, like in his grace, you get an idea it's something really big. So that was sort of, I had a sense for, like, again, I didn't know, but I had a sense because I knew there was meetings, people were talking and sharing things, and there's security concerns for Kumelas, because there's a lot of people and you're going out. I mean, not security concerns, but I mean, those leaders travel with security brigade. Like sometimes people with big guns, And so I was like, wow, all these people coming to see Swamiji. And so I recognized that there's a big Hindu diaspora, and because it's big, that warrants what seems to be the big forces opposing it. So like, I didn't know details and all that stuff, but that was a sense I got, is like, okay, yeah. So all the leaders of Hinduism have gathered here, 50 million people are here. We're serving 100,000 meals per day, 2,000 people an hour, or 1,000 people per hour, or something, through our temple. And I saw it, I was there. And I was like, this is huge. And darshans that never end, people dancing all it. And so I was like, okay, so something really huge is going on. And so this explains a little bit the huge forces that are against it. But details and storylines and stuff, I still was extremely foggy.
And this was in both Nasik and and the Ujjain Kumbh Melas, right? Like they're 1 year apart.
That was Nasik was the first experience with the Mahamaleshwars, and Ujjain was, although Nasik and Ujjain are two small Kumelas, that's why it's a tragedy. It's a crime against humanity that we didn't get to celebrate the next one, because it's literally the celebration of nonviolence, and it would have been next level. Surely that's why they cracked down, but because of the growth and popularity. But Nashik was huge, and people were really excited about Swamiji and saying all these things. That it's one thing for us to say, right, I love my guru, but when Ranagiriji, the twice at least elected leader for the entire Panchayat and Akara Parishad, all the Akaras, to say that, it's like, are you, like, he knows he knows what he's saying, he's not a devotee saying I love my guru. He's telling you Swamiji is extremely unique. So when he says that, you kind of step back and say, okay, I need to reevaluate the bigness of who Swamiji is. And then Ujjain was just, like I said, we blew people out of the water. Like some people had, like I said, we had 32 tractors, and then Swamiji came, and then we had 2,000 international people dancing with umbrellas and padukas, and they never seen anything like that before.
Then what happened after Ujjain?
So yeah, Swamiji kept giving programs. He was giving like Inner Awakening every month almost, and sometimes, yes, every month and more. Kept giving programs, Sada Shivoham, Mahasada Shivoham. I mean, I guess what I had Swamiji, also one of the things Swamiji is manifesting is called Sacred Arts University. And Swamiji said it would be more popular than Gurukul. So it's kind of like there's 64 traditional arts and more from Sanatana Hindu Dharma that are for enlightenment. So how to dance for enlightenment, how to do jewelry for enlightenment, perfume for enlightenment. And there's these different arts, archery, things like rope yoga, and the woodworking, the metalworking, the stoneworking, crystal, like there's many different arts, all these stapatis, the science of temple building and all these things, deity creation. So Swamiji is building this campus and reviving, because he's reviving, because humanity needs solution to their self-hatred and anger that is killing everything. People need solution for their life. And so Swamiji is reviving. So he's collecting artifacts that are going extinct, restoring them and giving them as services to the society. So we have the Sacred Arts University that is involved with that. So deity creating. And so I was in that campus for some time, which was incredible. So I got to see what kind of materials were being stored and how the deities are built and made out of teak wood, and how the wood is processed, and all the materials, all the different things, all the puja items, because these things are going extinct. So you have to collect them. Like they're literally not available, not being made. It's a tragedy. So Swamiji was also employing a community. There was a traditional communities, for generations, 10, 12 generations, they are woodworkers, deity creators, and all that. So there was a community of young boys. It was great to see like 16, 17-year-old boys, like kids, but they came from that tradition, and they were part of a community. They all wear uniforms of these stapatis, I guess, creating the deities. And so they were there doing the woodworking. Just so beautiful what they were doing. And so they were living like that. And I was seeing what was happening, and I was seeing how they do it and talking with them and how they melt the metal and pour it, and all the artifacts that were coming in that had to be restored and cleaned and labeled and inventoried. So I was doing all that. So I saw what the materials and the life and the process and the teachings. And so it was like, wow, this like it's the expletive gold mine. Just like, wow, gold mine, like, wow, like humans, you have to know this. And it's beautiful. We're up on the hill from where the campus is. So you're seeing down onto the temple and stuff. So just a beautiful setting and a beautiful life. And the ratams going on in our campus. So you hear all through the morning and night, and just beautiful life. So yeah, seeing that and seeing this magnitude of the revival Swamiji is doing. And so that was part of the thing that I saw, the money that's involved. It's expensive to, work with gold, as Hindus do, is expensive. Gold is an expensive thing. So they were breaking into the campus and stealing things, and they were doing a lot of illegal things. Even they were breaking into the campus and stealing sandal trees, because sandal is rare and extremely valuable, the bottom 2 feet of the tree. So Swamiji lives in, the Adi Kailas is a special campus, thousands of years, people have been worshiping there. There's many unique trees there. And like trees will go through like a mutation process that makes them special. So like a bilva leaf has 3 leaves, but you can get bilva leaves that have 9 leaves. So it'll be 3, 3, 3, and 3. And those trees grow in this campus. This extremely special campus has all of these unique trees. So Swamiji preserves all of them. But anyway, people were breaking in and doing things like that. So I remember I learned about security in that campus because it was crazy. They were setting fire to things. It was it was ridiculous. They were breaking in and threatening people and breaking into the Gurukul where the kids are. So the security was put 3 levels of security, so no one was allowed near Gurukul. It was just ridiculous, the protocols we had to learn. But I mean, it's the process, I think, of learning to be it's the process of what it means to be a spiritual warrior. I think it's to stand for Dharma and to go through any perceived challenge to live righteously without violence. I think that is, to me, although I was a warrior on the ice, that was a different thing. It's extreme violence. So you have to learn to be a spiritual warrior with this absence of violence. And so there's a process you have to go through. You have to recognize the murderous attack going on to you, but you should not be killed. Swamiji has a purpose and he has to protect his body. So we should not be killed, but at the same time, we can't be violent. So that I kind of learned, those attacks going on and how we had to store the precious items and people breaking into the warehouses and infiltration of people posing as staff and stealing things and sharing information about security cameras. Like, yeah, I learned about some things about security at the Sacred Arts.
And this was all in 2016 and 17 when you were in with the Sacred Arts.
Yeah, that was mostly the end of 2016 for a few months into 2017.
Okay. And what anything that happened in 2017?
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Security of, yeah, Swamiji's personal, yeah, we had to step up security. Assassination attempts is a sad thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing I understand is Swamiji, like Swamiji was poisoned many times and tortured many times in many places while in custody of police and otherwise. And it's also physically attacked in many instances. And it just got to the point where, they had for years been working and sent people to infiltrate the Sangha. And we know a lot of that, they went to international media to sell their stories and allegations and stuff. So I was living with those people. It's weird, it's weird. I was cooking them food, waking them up in the morning, teaching them how to get dressed, how to do puja. And then they try to murder me and my mother, father, and my sisters and brothers. Strange, unexpected. So yeah, a lot of that stuff was going on at that time. It's really, I don't know, it's weird. I mean, Swamiji is the only one who could cognize how to continue on, and that's the only reason we did. And so what ended up happening is the murderous attacks, and like they knew the campus better than we did. They knew how to get to Swamiji's quarters better than we did, even though we're living there, and when. Like they know our routine better than us, so they know when to make the assassination attempts. So basically, it got so bad where can't constantly have Swamiji having to heal his body from assassination attempts. Like he has other work to do. Like if you see, his body got very inflamed after 2010 when he was poisoned, many times, but you see his body is very chubby and inflamed because the amount of poison he's given is 10 times what it will take to kill a normal person because they know he's a yogi. So it takes some time to cleanse his body from that. So he has to spend some conscious time and energy on it, to my understanding. You can see in those days he had a cough for many years. He had a cough, and I mean, of course, many things, right? He appearing in a wheelchair and all these things. So, but so yeah, I think sort of it just got so, it's like you can't constantly be not able to teach and constantly have to heal from assassination. Like there's only so much. And so the thing was, it became unsafe for us to be there. I mean, one of the ways to look at it, I think it became unsafe for us to be there because constantly people breaking in. And so Swamiji basically left that place so that we could stay. That's what happened. Like Swamiji left so we could stay. So Swamiji gave up everything that he had built so that we could continue to benefit from it.
And this happened in 2018, right? Was it?
Yeah, that led into 2018. Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened in 2018 for you personally? Like until 2018, you were not able to, you still were not fully aware of what's happening, right? Or let's say your awareness did not increase to a good degree.
Yeah, that was what 2018 when Swamiji had moved from the campus. We started learning more because it had become acute. So we had opportunity to sort of take some time to study the persecution and share about it as at least an attempt at that time to at least tell the story of what was happening, because it had come to a bit of a head in terms of Swamiji staying there. So yeah, so we had an opportunity to spend some time learning about the persecution, and that was definitely one of the biggest. That was what helped me to learn that you have to be ferocious, like you have to be a fighter, not in the sense that you're violent, but you have to fight against your laziness and tamas and reluctance to be involved with things that seem intimidating, because if you don't, they kill you. So it's not about killing them, but if you don't fight to stay alive, it's like they don't leave you alone. They kill you till you're dead. Like if you look at all the traditions in the world, they don't leave you alone. They don't stop until you're dead. So we studied that. We studied, and so that was when I learned a lot, and we shared a lot. We shared our stories with each other, which I had not really done with people that much, and hadn't heard the stories. We started sharing at that time. We took some time during that year to understand more what it was, what's going on, why and who. And so that helped. It gives you a good context, because I always wanted to help. I mean, for a lot of my life, I wanted to help people. That's why I became a teacher. I wanted to help. I knew there's a lot of problems, a lot of difficulties, a lot of attacks on kids with media and food and television. And I knew there's a lot of attacks on people. And I had some ideas of where it was coming from. And I wanted to, be part of a solution. And so this part really made sense. It took all the parts that I knew that were attacking, whether it's corporate parts, political parts, media parts, and it connected a lot of the dots about who had attacked Swamiji, why, and when. And so that really helped me to see they're trying to destroy my life. And so you have a choice how you're going to respond.
What happened? So in 2018, you took some time off and you started studying the persecution or the attacks that has been happening on Hindus, especially traditional Hindus. And what is your current understanding of Hindus, of the international war, right? It's the Kurukshetra, global Kurukshetra that has been waged on them. How
Yeah,
much do you think an average Hindu understands?
none, zero.
And why is there such a gap, right? I mean,
I mean, yeah, it's like how I grew up, right? People here are not concerned about necessarily politics or international politics or really even the church or whatever. They just want their daily bread and their weekends.
and when you speak to an average Hindu, right, about this attack that is being waged on them, like, how do they respond? Like, do they take it? Do they not buy it? Or like, what is in your view? What how do they react to it?
Yeah, and it was similar to me. I guess they don't want to know, and they don't know, and it's not, they don't see the relevance. Like generally, like in a sense, some of our circles and sangha are more aware, and so it goes further. But in a general sense, yeah, I mean, an average Hindu, it's like it's a foreign language.
Yeah, let's leave it at that, and we can discuss the remaining parts of it maybe in the part three. Uh, yeah, it was very enlightening. I mean, I'm glad that you spoke about your evolution into a warrior for Hinduism. Like you left a society so that you can live in peace in a forest, and you got attacked because you wanted to live in peace, and you had to enter into this global Kurukshetra, which you wanted to leave very desperately. It's kind of ironic, right? Like where the life is going to lead you to, or leads you to.
Yeah, it's that's the thing is, as long as we were living a life, we were playing violent sports and drinking alcohol and whatever, as long as we're doing that, no one bothers you. But when you start living a peaceful lifestyle and sharing about it, I never got death threats until I started doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, this is ironic, right? So you want to live peacefully, people want to kill you. When you want to live violently, it's all fine, dandy, right?
Yeah, if you want to be abused left and right, just talk about peace.
Yeah, that's a an ironic note to end on, not a happy note, but yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, we'll do a part three later. All right, let's end with the Purna Mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam